Ahoy, listeners! Welcome to the Yonko Podcast with me, Alex Chuan, and our crew, Burke, Brock, and Ryan. With no new chapter this week, we're talking about something else One Piece related. Our topic today, Haki! With this, we'll have covered the two main power systems in the One Piece universe. Let's jump right in, boys. Let's set sail. Yep, no chapter this week, which is always unfortunate, but that lets us talk about other parts of the world which people are interested in.
I don't want to.
You want to. Come on.
We're
talking...
Sensei! Give me new chapter!
Next week, guys. Next week. We're going to have it Friday. We'll probably put out a video by Sunday. It'll be good. Join us for that. But no, this week, let's talk about the other power system introduced, albeit much later. Devil Fruits was very early on. First episode, I think we mentioned Devil Fruits.
Okay.
Haki, that came in a little bit later. We saw indications of it. I don't think the word Haki jumped in anywhere until 350 plus?
It was a bit later.
It was after.
Later. I think it didn't really start until after the time skip.
I mean, we had some of it with the Summit War because he went to Amazon Lily,
right?
And obviously the Island of Women just has
even
a bunch.
I'd say.
Mantra was its first official use
as Haki in general. I think it started being noticeable pre-Sabaody because that's when Luffy took out that bowl.
Right, yeah, that was the first time he used Conquerors, right?
Also,
with Duval.
with the meeting with Shanks and Whitebeard, because obviously,
splitting the sky, right? Shanks
and
also
Shanks
else.
was making people pass out,
right?
Yeah.
Conquerors again.
So definitely,
Mantra was the earliest observation.
Building blocks were there. And it can even be said, the first indication of it could have been when Shanks saved Luffy.
Which was very early on.
The only thing is, some of us might have issues with the fact that, if he could do that, why did he lose his arm?
Yeah.
And I think we agree as a fandom
that a general concept.
One Piece wasn't meant to be as long as it is. Oda was writing a fun little story about pirates.
Yeah.
He didn't have a solid idea of what Conqueror's Haki was and Shanks' power level and all that, right? You have a 17-year-old Luffy punching the crap out of this thing.
That's the whole thing is, he just enjoyed writing
He thought it was going to be a one-off.
Yeah. But, now the Lost Arm, I bet it on New Generation, right? It's a cool thing.
No, it's a cool thing.
What he's done with it.
But right there in that instance, it was you can tell now that we know what we know, that was Haki that he used.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Conquerors came first really with that. Mantra, observation and then Armament was last, really.
Armament, I don't think was really confirmed until Summit War.
Yeah, basically Amazon Lily.
When he was getting
Lily
hit by blunt things, and he was like, "That shouldn't hurt me. I'm a rubber man," and it was. Right.
I think conceptually it was coming into form then.
Because that's the thing.
It just wasn't given the name.
Am I crazy, or I don't remember people getting the black?
No, that's time skip. That's time skip.
Yeah.
And I still want to think that there's and we'll talk about levels a little bit later. I want to think that there's a level where you don't need to cover yourself in black. You can just it's there.
No,
it's invisible.
Sure.
That's what Kaido's doing right now with Conquerors, is where it's invisible.
Right. And Summit War, you had Whitebeard obviously stabbing with it. You had Marco and Vista using it. You didn't see any of this black stuff, right? So there has to be another level of armament, just like there's been other levels of observation, other levels.
Or maybe that was
Conquerors.
just an animation choice where they just weren't doing that quite yet. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see what they do, animation wise. But I want to get to the big first question of this, which is, do you guys think Haki is a good power system? Because that's something I think the fandom talks about a lot, and it can be controversial. So I want to gauge this room on that. Is Haki a good power system?
Well, if you're talking about just does it have rules and does it make sense, whose Haki beats whose, I wouldn't say it's a good power system, just because, and that's the thing with shonen anime. I just don't feel like power levels ever since we've heard them from Dragon Ball.
Sure.
They don't actually make sense. They're just cool things to be our character's growing. It gives us a sense of, okay, our character's growing to beat this next step. I mean, that was the coolest thing about a couple chapters ago with Luffy kind of getting this basically upgrade to his Conqueror's Haki. It's hype as hell, but
it's definitely a story device more than a power system device. It's not. I wouldn't My Hero Academia for another anime, or even Naruto to a certain extent. They definitely have a more set in stone power system where it's explained. It's like for Naruto, it's like, hey, you have to train in these things.
The issue with that
and signs.
is just to contradict you a little bit on that, is like you never know what is the limit on somebody's chakra. It's like you always have.
He has a lot, he has less.
Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously have like the elemental chakras and all these things, but it's just it never makes sense as to when somebody's going to run out of chakra.
Yeah.
And also,
like the whole thing with Madara at the end, he wants to become a human again, but that means he's
having limited chakra.
he has a limited chakra, but why
he's
is he never running out?
But he's so OG, he really does.
So I guess Naruto wouldn't be a good idea.
and
So-
also,
that's why I was just saying, like, in shonen anime in general,
Well,
it's very hard with
and
the
as
power.
a general concept, if you think about it, if you think about cartoons in general, you know, whether it's Western or Eastern, the idea of power scaling is very much one that's more based in games. It's very much statistical. It's very much based around numbers, which is not something most cartoons and shows tend to focus on.
No, because they
They
focus on...
focus on just they focus on the essence of the power and what it means in that world and its effects, and usually that's enough.
And as a story device,
the most you need to know is that this guy could beat this guy, or he's not that guy's level yet. That's usually all you need to know in the case of like anime, you know. And
well, you know who your protagonist is, and you see the antagonist they'll face and overcome.
and they usually tell you who's stronger. Like,
sure, clearly you don't mess with the Yonko.
You'll know through the story that you can't beat this person,
right,
or
at this time,
or they're equally level.
Yeah,
but these series weren't designed to be so detailed and statistical about their power scaling, because you know when it's something that it's more of a story, you don't necessarily need all the numbers.
right.
But now when it comes to like a game where there's actual stats you need to look at,
Sure.
where there's actually leveling involved, like leveling up that you control.
Right.
That's a different thing because that's something you need to be able to follow. But with a story like One Piece, for example, it's really not necessary. All that matters, especially in shonen anime, you can see in Naruto, Bleach, you know, even My Hero, and most shonen anime, is that the power is a general power that is naturally a part of the world. And what matters about the power is its effects and how you can grow it.
Yeah, I just think the One Piece, it's like they do a really good job explaining the devil fruits.
Right.
Like what they're capable of, how the different types work, or that there is different types at all, or the awakening for it and everything.
Right.
The only thing that I wish is like, obviously they're explaining Haki as it's coming up in the story, which is good, and it's the same thing they did with devil fruits, because we didn't even know they had awakening until way later in the story or anything like that.
Right.
But they right now, where we're at in the story, devil fruits are pretty set in stone in the way they're explained and what they can do with them. Haki is just like still being discovered, so it's constantly like power scaling isn't really something you can talk about. But in terms of devil fruits, that one you can talk about because that is set in stone. Like, you've
got your Logia, you got your Paramecia, you've got your...
But in
Zoan. I know all of them, I just want to put it out there.
an argument of that, really the only power scaling involved with the devil fruits is the fact that Logia is known as the best. You know, you don't really power scale the powers themselves. Really, when it really comes down to more of a science and like what's naturally good against this, what are the effects of this. It's still a matter of what they do to each other, the effects they have in the world. You don't really, get into like super detail.
But not so much power scaling, but like explaining it. You can explain the devil fruits pretty concretely.
That's because
right, like
the powers, they revolve, most of them, they revolve around natural occurrences.
Yeah.
So you can't explain that.
Well, you're talking about Logias now.
Well, yeah, Logias.
So like take take Buggy, right? Bari no Mi is chop fruit. Like the dude's just immune to slashing, and he can pop his body off and pop it back. Like natural phenomena.
But then they eventually explain
and he has
it too.
like some benefits of like, you know, as long as his feet are on the ground, the rest of him can just keep hovering as long as it's in a certain vicinity of his feet.
And so like they explain it exactly what they're able to do.
Clear power, clear limitation, right?
Haki doesn't have that yet.
Well,
and it's hard to have
Haki
both
doesn't
in the
have-
same story.
Haki doesn't have seemingly a cap, and when we see a new cap is when we're introduced to a new antagonist, right? You take observation Haki to its highest form right now, future sight seems
Yeah.
to be
Which
that.
Katakuri was like the master of that.
Right.
And now
And now
and when
it's-
you, but
you find out a lot
also,
of people can do it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare something as inward based as Haki. Like it's like comparing spirit to how hard you punch, in my opinion.
Think about it this way. So, Haki is just, and maybe we should explain Haki for those that are like new to One Piece or don't understand. I mean, we're pretty far enough talking about Haki, but the idea here is this: Haki is an extension of your will. You want to attack, you want to observe and feel the presences around you with your own will, and then if you have the genetic trait, you can conquer others with the next level of will that you have, right? So Haki is an extension of that will innately in everybody. The two that can be trained: observation and armament, and then conqueror. You have to be special, a king's lineage, if you will.
Maybe a 1%er.
Really, it is, because conquerors is supposed to be even more rare than even the most rarest of mythical Zoan's fruits. And really, we only are introduced to so many Conqueror Haki users that use it well, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Luffy has become that at fall in the series because he's continuing to use it. But yeah, that's just a general basis of what Haki is. I think Haki is absolutely necessary, as much as maybe I don't like it in the world. Necessary because otherwise Logias would be king. They would be god status.
Here's my thing. It's like I say the system's not necessarily the best, but I love it.
Yeah, it's necessary.
It's so necessary.
I just want it to be explained.
Because like what Brock was just talking about, with Logias, they're always considered the best. But if you have Haki, you can take a Logia.
Yeah, Logias have no
That's
strength
the best
in the
thing
New World.
about this time skip with Luffy and Smoker. Like, Smoker was always giving Luffy trouble, but now it's like Luffy can... Smoker was nothing to Luffy when they met again on Punk Hazard. It was just like, oh...
Well, and also
There's nothing to law.
My favorite example too is when we see someone actually stop one of Kizaru's attacks for the first time.
Rayleigh.
Because when Rayleigh does that, and like no normal person could do that. You have to be able to feel it coming or see it ahead of the time to be able to keep up with the speed of light.
Because before that kind of stuff, the only example you had were like natural things, like Luffy being able to punch an L because he's made of lightning, and Kat noticed this when she was watching. My wife is actually currently watching through One Piece with me, and we were watching the Alabasta arc, and she noticed that as Crocodile stabs Luffy the first time, that Luffy was able to grab him, and she noticed it was because he was bleeding, and that was water.
Which is so metal.
So that's the stuff where it's like, it's really nice how Devil Fruits have been introduced in the system, and every fight, you really get to, you see why it makes sense. Like, it's very explained, it's very straightforward. I really like One Piece where it comes to Devil Fruits. My only worry is with Haki and how it's being used. It's very Dragon Ball Z-like, where it's like... oh, the next power-up. Right. Oh, the next power-up. And it's like, mention of it throughout the series, and all of a sudden it's there.
I'm glad that with that, it's not... Because my biggest issue with Dragon Ball Z has always been, you stand around screaming, and that's how all of a sudden your power level starts going up. And that's just from an outside observer. I've never actually watched the full series. I just get the gist of it.
Yeah, technically it's going like defeated.
But
Saiyan specifically.
But yeah, exactly. Saiyan specifically get
super strong after
power
being beat.
boosts for almost being beat.
Right.
But at least with like One Piece, we don't have to stand around for episodes waiting for them to power up.
That's true.
It's been mostly like, okay, and I can get it from like Luffy's perspective because he's a very creative guy in the heat of battle.
Right.
I can understand him learning something in the midst of a difficult situation.
Well, and I a long time ago I read this article about Luffy, and they phrased the way I liked that they phrased it was that Luffy is a genius of battle. Mm-hmm. He's an instinctual genius when it comes to fighting because he's so good at reacting, so good at learning from his losses and his wins. Mm-hmm. There's never a wasted fight with him because he always comes back stronger or he's learned from it.
Right.
And so I love the idea that he's just like instinctual genius when it comes to fighting.
Let me defend Haki a little bit here, and this isn't to any one specific point, but
Ryan, tell him no.
No.
I do feel like
No, not in my house. Anyway, sorry.
I think Haki it plays its roles in battle, but I think it also plays its role in the actual plot lines. Where let's take Colby's realization at Marineford when he awakened.
He awakens his observation.
And he awakened it to a point that he was so distressed by all the death and all the destruction, he, forced himself to take on Akainu. Thank you, Shanks, for saving Colby there. But, and saying, look, we're wasting all these people's lives. They've clearly lost, right? Like, it empowered him to take a stand that I don't think he normally would have without it. So more than just like a battle scenario, I think that Haki also creates these really tender, powerful, and horrifying moments for certain characters.
Well, it's the whole thing is like, and I like the concept of Haki, especially where I'm at in my rewatch, is anybody can inherently train armament and observation if they so desire. If they have the will to do it, they can do it. So all of these people that Luffy is constantly saving from shitty kings or evil overlords trying to take their kingdom from them, they have the ability to do that if they have the willpower and the resolve to continue that. So I like observation and armament Haki because technically anybody could learn that as long as they are willing to put in the work. Conquerors, obviously, if they have that inherently because they're from some bloodline, then sure, by all means. Just use it for the right reasons. Don't be a Doflamingo about it, please.
Foxy has conquerors.
Well, no, we don't know if it's actually confirmed to be like a bloodline thing yet, right? That's just the theory. That's the prevailing
Well, at the
theory.
very least, you have to be born with it.
Rayleigh
It's not necessarily said it's bloodline, but you have to be born with it.
Rayleigh had a line about, you have to, it's something that's already within you. Most people don't have it, right?
Yeah.
And I think...
So it's like something you're like...
Garp,
we don't know.
It's hard to point at characters that we assume have it and then haven't shown it. So.
I think we should stick to people we know have it.
So actually, let's just even nix the bloodline thing at this point.
Because I think that anyone could train in it at all. Like, I just think it's like... The people that have conquerors went through more stuff than anyone else.
Not only that, I think that they literally have to be the kind of people like Luffy where they have something they're fighting
they have
for.
To be
they
kings.
have something they want to conquer.
They literally have to be conquerors. They have to be kings of some sort, I think. Like, in terms of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Luffy wants to be king of the pirates.
Because I don't think Garp has the spirit of a conqueror.
He definitely didn't at Marineford, and for very clear reasons. He didn't have a lot of will in Marineford. But like outside of Marineford, we don't really see him fighting a lot.
Because I don't
maybe we'll find something out about the god.
I think the power of conquerors really is not. It's not based on the actual power of the person. It's based on what's inside them.
Right.
Well, what about like do you think Kizaru has it?
I don't think any of the admirals have it.
I think they. Well, that's the thing.
I think only certain individuals can have it because it's based on what's inside. I honestly believe Conquerors. What makes Conquerors special is that it isn't a physical thing. It isn't something you can say like, oh, he's like this, so he has it. I think you have to be.
I get what you're saying. I have a prevailing theory that Conquerors doesn't really belong to the government. It's more about like the oppressed like masses outside of the world government that are wanting to fight for a better world, like pirates, like revolutionaries,
fight for freedom,
right? Whereas like if you're like the government, you already have enough stuff going on. I don't think all of the admirals having Conquerors. I think that makes them even more overpowered than they already are.
And I don't think any. I honestly don't think any of the admirals have Conquerors.
If any of them, Akainu, just because that would make for a really sick final fight, but he didn't need it when he dealt with Ace, and Ace didn't show any use for Conquerors either. Everyone was surprised when Luffy showed it on the battlefield, who, by the way, was the only one who showed Conquerors on the battlefield in Marineford, despite the fact that we thought, I would assume most of us think that other people on that battlefield had it.
Whitebeard had it for sure.
Whitebeard, Garp, you can assume, right?
Well, I'm not certain.
I'm not certain, but like...
Honestly,
I feel like the D bloodline, if any bloodline, should have at least a really good odd of having them. Saul, obviously, Jaguar D. Saul. Doflamingo is not a D, but he has. I don't
think we should think of it like a bloodline thing.
I really
don't think it's a bloodline thing.
No,
because the more you think about it, and the people that have it, there's
At
no
least the
relation.
people we have confirmed.
Yeah, there's no relation at all between them.
Other than not even D, because like Blackbeard and
I think it's like a personality trait. I think when they say you have to be born with it, I think it's like, you know how people are born with personality traits and those don't really change a ton?
sure. Yeah.
I think when Rayleigh said that, it was more like a personality thing. It's like, well, you were
There's
born...
just something about his spirit that
Exactly.
he has.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking of it like a
will.
willpower thing, it's all about the mind and stuff.
Yeah.
That's not race related.
I mean,
like,
Rayleigh was like the Dark King, but Roger found him on a boat, like drinking. Like,
Yeah.
he's not really not a king.
And
but
I think Conqueror, rather than people grow up to have conquerors, I think conquerors proves the propensity for who they can be.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a much better way
Because
to
that's the
think
thing,
about it.
is just because Roger found Rayleigh drinking on a boat doesn't mean that Rayleigh couldn't, be a conqueror himself.
Right, but
Yeah.
It's just literally that being around Roger brought out the best in Rayleigh.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Rayleigh's
same
a
with Colby.
really good, cool dude.
Well, and Shanks also has, as far as we're concerned, the strongest conquerors in the series. If
We'll
we're
see.
trying to give Shanks his actual,
I mean,
like,
it would make sense if he was keeping Kaido at bay during the Summit War.
yeah, right before it, and then it
Because
made
that's
him.
the thing, is like Kaido's has been the most advanced conquerors we've
Yeah,
seen.
I think if anything, it confirmed that Shanks has crazy strong conquerors. Because if we just found out that, hey, the only people that can defeat Kaido or even hurt him are the people that have conquerors themselves, I think that confirms it. We've known Shanks has conquerors this whole time.
Well, he was breaking Whitebeard's ship with it, which
Yeah.
is the craziest version, even now, of conquerors besides coding yourself.
The first time we see two emperors meet was Shanks and Whitebeard.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that Clash Conquerors, even though it didn't show much, I think it was a foretelling of just how powerful Shanks really was, because he was challenging the strongest man in the world.
And that's why we have power scaling at all, is because we have titles like that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of, we can't not compare characters once we have, like, this is the strongest
I
creature,
think
that's the
when we have
strongest man.
titles, it's kind of like a culmination of what they can do.
Yeah.
Like with Whitebeard, he can create natural disasters that can break the world.
Right.
And he's
By all
also
means,
an incredibly
sank
powerful fighter.
Marineford in
Tried to, really, if not for Blackbeard. Probably would have.
Yes and no, just because obviously he wanted to try and save Ace.
He probably
Well, I
didn't-
know,
It was
but
after Ace died.
after Ace
So-
died, he's like,
I know,
I'm
but
gonna
he still had to
sink
think
this.
about the rest of his crew, though.
Well, yeah, that's the
Well,
thing.
they were on the other side of the... Well, you know what I mean. He definitely had the power to. Sengoku was very clear at the beginning of the war, that man can destroy the world.
Yeah.
Right? It's because he decided to hold back and care about others that he didn't.
Yeah.
Right? And that's his crew, and that's his family.
Yep. I just hope at the end of One Piece they do it. They explain it. Like, yeah, Naruto. The main reason a lot of people are mad at the Naruto story, people still love it, but everyone pretty much agrees at the end where there's like a moon god that comes in. It's like
Aliens.
you just throw anything that was like confirmed or like anything you thought you knew about like how the world worked just out the window.
It's literally the same way I feel about Dragon Ball.
Exactly.
Is like where Dragon Ball Super is from what I've seen. It's like, okay, wow.
Like to fight gods now.
Like, don't get me wrong, we already were extraterrestrial with Dragon Ball.
In segments,
But
right?
then, like, we get to freaking
Now we have universes.
gods and universes
fighting.
and deciding which universe gets
on-
to be destroyed or...
Real quick, though, with that, gods had already previously existed before Dragon Ball Super. We had the Kais. They were actually gods. And
They were very
I
powerful.
know,
I know, but we have...
But they
they're-
weren't deciding
but there
what
were- there were-
dimensions
there were
get
still-
destroyed.
But there were different dimensions that, like... Here's what I'm arguing. As opposed to Naruto, but I won't obviously derail too far on this, but compared to Naruto, it starts off as a ninja anime, and it goes to aliens and gods. That's too much. With Dragon Ball Z, it started with aliens, minor gods, so it had the propensity to go that high.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Like, it explained it.
And then also, but that's also why I think we can... That in defense of One Piece is Oda from
No, from the very
how he
beginning,
created
you
this,
can tell
from how
that
he
it has
created this
propensity
series.
because when Luffy shows up on the scene with Gomu Gomu powers, all these things, you have like the normal people, and then you've got this pirate who's like super freaking strong. Like the propensity for its growth makes sense.
Well,
to
also
me.
the propensity for it is like the way he designed One Piece. He's literally made it safe for him to broaden the world about as much as he wants. I mean, hell, He even sent Enel to the moon.
No, that's clear. We have space pirates confirmed in One Piece. If you
now
follow
here's the
Nell's
thing.
cover
I don't expect us to get extraterrestrial visits. That'd still be weird in my opinion.
I need him to come back.
But I think there's a lot more room for lots of more
It
to
does,
happen.
but look, we can have space pirates and doing space pirates. That's fine.
Yeah,
I don't
just
care
need a
about
cap
that.
on the. I just want there to be like an end, not even an end cap on power, but I just want it to be explained. I don't want it to be a constant. Oh, this is the new thing. Oh, this is the new.
It's
power.
not going to be a Dragon Ball Z. I don't see that happening.
That's my only thing. Where it's like I love Devil Fruits. I like Haki, what it adds to the story, but there needs to be a limit to it, to where it's not like.
Here's the thing: is like if Luffy has to fight Im at the end, I don't need all of a sudden like Im's shadow is the like
the true god,
the will of some eldritch horror that's living under the red line or something.
Yeah.
Please, God.
All of a sudden, there's Cthulhu and everything. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean,
as long as there's a limit and a cap, I think it's a great story.
Hashtag Foxy would beat Cthulhu.
Oh my God!
100%.
No, but Oda always pulls from different mythologies, but he never does so in a way that's breaking his world. It's always Devil Fruit, just a name of a character, a
lot of references.
set of characters. Right.
He does the normal anime references
and
thing.
it's nothing crazy. It's nothing world breaking, and it's enjoyable. No, I trust Oda,
and I think
to end in a pretty decent way.
And honestly, I think the fact that he focuses so much on the history of the world.
Right.
He's doing pretty good at keeping it within the world.
I mean, that's the whole point of Robin as a character in Ohara, right? And let's be clear, the One Piece world has multiple moons surrounding it, right? If we look at the one scene in Ohara where we look at the globe and in their library, there's all these moons around it. I'll put a picture up in our video; you can see it there. But like it is a little bit of an expanded universe versus one Earth and a moon. There's a bit more to it. And what's interesting about that is that we are getting a little bit of that with Enel going to the moon, meeting these little dudes and powering the space colony. A little bit of history on like the Skypians and the Shandorians and the
And honestly, I wouldn't mind that as long as it connected back to what it's supposed to connect.
And I think it does because they had Jaya had a role in the Void Century, right? And the Void Century has so much that is left to be discovered and known about the world. Oda has a lot of questions to answer.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah.
Remember when we were supposed to talk about Haki?
Well, okay, but that's the point of all of this is that it kind of comes back to we want things explained. Ryan made the point of Haki is one of those things that keeps getting new things without a cap. And honestly, I'm okay with Haki being still somewhat vague at the end because people's wills change. Maybe that makes new powers. Let's talk about Haki and the powers we've seen thus far, and maybe the powers we still will see. Right? So Conquerors, let's start with it. I feel like it's the most basic. Your will exerted over a wide range of other people knocks them down.
That's not basic, dude.
I think we should do Conquerors last.
You don't think
Conquerors
it's the most
is the least
basic?
Conquerors
basic.
is complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's start with Armament.
Okay.
I think Armament's the easiest
Armament,
to go for.
I honestly don't think we have much more to grow with what Armament's
I think
at.
Armament and Observation are both capped.
Yeah.
I think I think
pretty
they're
close.
explained.
Like,
I think if you can get beyond seeing the future, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Armament, you started out with, hey, I can coat myself in. Well, I guess originally it was I can hit a Logia.
Yeah.
I can touch.
That's how it started.
Yes.
I can coat myself in willpower to hit a Logia. Then it was a defensive mechanism. You can coat yourself in Armament to have like a shell of willpower. You saw that with the black coating. Like Virgo was the best example of that. Coated his whole body. And then to cap it, you can have Armament outside of yourself, which is what the admirals were doing during Marineford, where they made a barrier.
Rio?
What's his name? Something Maru. Sentamaru.
Sentamaru was doing.
He was like the best example, I think, because he kept doing it to Luffy.
And Rayleigh did it to that elephant, right?
Yeah.
The elephant.
So you can essentially make a shield of will to block something.
or an explosion of an attack.
Yeah.
Which is what Rayleigh did.
Then Observation, if you want to take that one, Burke.
So with Observation, it's just been mostly like you can see the people around you. So with Skypea, NL was able to assert his godhood because
he could sense life energy.
He had senses of life energy, and not only could he sense life energy, but it almost seemed like he could also sense like blasphemy, for lack of a better word, because he
Well,
was
it's like emotion.
That let's be clear, his ability to hear what other people are saying and all that was his devil fruit.
Yeah.
He was
He had
exerting lightning through it and was being able
No, I
to.
know, but also just like the observation,
the combination.
the combination of that.
He
He
could
knew
do
people were here with his lightning. He could hear what they were
Observation
saying.
allowed him to see where people were at, and
like
his
their
power led him
emotions,
to
their
hear
feelings
when they
towards
blaspheme.
him.
Yeah.
And just like Isa, right, the little Shandorian girl who was also able to like feel the voices disappearing,
Yep.
right? So there's this greater area that you can kind of see and feel.
And then Usopp has feelings.
Well, he kind of has both based on the bit you saw there in Dressrosa. It's like obviously he can feel the negative energy from
Sugar?
Sugar, yes. But he could also like see where they're at.
He kind of saw their outlines,
and he
past
could
the
like
wall.
see
Zoom in
where
everything.
he needs to like
Right.
move the Kabuto to shoot the package at Sugar.
Right.
And then you've got Haki, or I'm sorry, Katakuri.
Yeah, so Katakuri, so observation taken to its like logical conclusion of like you're able to foresee attacks because that's the whole thing is Luffy shows off observation like right at the beginning of after the time skip happens where he is now able to completely dodge any attack from the pacifistas. And he's like too slow.
And I think
So the logical next step is like not only can you foresee them, but you're seeing so far ahead, you start seeing seconds into the future. Which I mean, it's only a second for Katakuri, but you know
That's all he needs.
when you're people like Katakuri or Luffy, you only need that much.
Well, Katakuri's was more than that because
It was like 5 seconds.
It was
it?
because there was
I thought it was only the one
at the
second.
like
gate,
5
right?
seconds.
There was a guy that was like trying to get into the party, and like he shot a guy, but he stopped him 5 seconds before that because he saw it was all going to happen.
So I
then
think
by all means,
His was very advanced.
The most that I think observation can grow from where it's at is just maybe the length of time you can see into the
More
future.
seconds.
It's not gonna be
No.
like minutes, hours into the future.
No, not at all.
It's going to be seconds.
Yeah, it'll cap with JoJo.
And honestly, I think before that level, before you start physically seeing the future, I think it was more rather than
it's heightened instinct.
Yeah.
You sense the intention of the attack.
It's like
I think is
ultra
what it was.
instinct. If
Like
you
that's
will.
how you dodged.
Yeah,
Right,
Like,
well-
he was like, "Oh, he's coming this way." You know, like you could feel what their intention was, where their intention was
Yeah,
going.
the Kuja sisters were like left kick from the right, you know, a punch from the left, right, and they were able to call that out. But I don't think that's future sight. That's just like knowing what's coming up. Future sight's actually seeing scenes before they
you can
happen.
just like you can literally
Yeah.
name off what happens 5
over the
seconds in the future.
yeah, which is a
like Katakuri did like every time he did for a while just to impress the fans.
right, yeah,
And then we have Conquerors.
yeah.
Conquerors.
Base level, I mean, your will is exerted over others who have a lesser will. They're knocked out, right? That seems to be the basic level of Conquerors.
And
now,
it seems to me
I don't know before we get to what Kaido's doing currently, because this is the newest rendition of what you can do with Conquerors. You have Shanks, who's literally like pushing out so much Conquerors that he is cracking things, breaking things, as well as knocking people out. I feel like physically affecting physical objects, that's a level. And
And that could have also been Armament, though. He could have been doing the force field thing and breaking it that way.
I think it was just Conquerors.
it's hard to say for now.
Because it felt like he was pushing out waves of Conquerors. That's what it felt like. I feel like when we're talking about the Rio one that very much has an action in it, he was just walking. I feel like when it comes to Shanks, we've only ever seen Conquerors from him.
And also, I think it's important to note that I think we can agree probably that Conquerors is the main determinant or factor when it comes to whether or not a Devil Fruit power will work on you.
Yep. That's how you counter Devil Fruits.
That's how, yeah.
Yeah, that's how you
Like
counter
with Law's Fruit, I think that's the main teller of whether or not.
Yeah.
That's the main. I think Conqueror is also the way to tell how strong your will is.
Yeah.
You cannot manipulate individuals with a stronger will than you, which
Yeah.
means your Devil Fruit, which is
Or
how you.
Or I guess I shouldn't say that so generally because not everybody has Conquerors, but I think what makes certain people have Conquerors is what gauges what affects you.
Law was able to move Dofi with room. He was very clearly not able to do that with Kaido, right?
Or
Yes.
Big Mom.
Or Big Mom, right?
Could it also have been that Dofi was in a weakened state at all?
Well, he was also getting.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, he was.
So, like, does Armament get in a weaker state? Because, like, Luffy can do his blow-up thing for 10 minutes, Because he's exerting a lot of energy.
That's the thing. So,
but is that his devil fruit or is that his willpower?
Is it the Conqueror's Haki specifically? Like, do you remember from that chapter? Was it the Conqueror's Haki specifically that he was like, I can't move?
No, that's just my guess.
I think it was his devil fruit. Like, he was blowing energy. He was blowing air into his body.
He's talking about when Law couldn't move.
Kaido. I think he said it was Conquerors. I think he said it was Haki.
I don't think he said it was Conquerors. He just said I can't move him.
I think that just what lends itself what lends itself to the power of Conquerors is what you can use to gauge whether a devil fruit will affect you or not.
Right.
You know, if that makes any sense.
It's sort of like a will save. If you take D&D, as an example, right? If you're trying to do something to someone, move them, teleport them, something where you're exerting your action over them. If they have a stronger will than you, it just fails because you don't have the will to move them, whereas they have more will to stay where they're standing, whereas you have less of a will to move them, so you fail. So rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Except instead of chance, it's just. You're a level 90 and I'm a level 85. I'm not moving you. But if he had it and the level 85 didn't, he's moving to level 85, right? Yeah. I think Dofi was definitely weakened in that fight. He'd moved Luffy a few times before he actually moved Dofi because Luffy let him. I don't know if Luffy didn't want him to move him.
And yeah, that could also be a matter of the state their will's in, as in whether they see you as a friend or an enemy.
Right.
You know, like...
This is the question, because now we're going to talk about the latest version of Conqueror's Haki is being applied to people's bodies and their weapons.
It's almost like its own version of armament.
Is it on top of armament or is it in place of armament?
That's the thing that that's where I get confused.
The current crossover there is a little odd. I would want to think that it's like infused armament. Like that has Conquerors within
I'm really hoping the anime shows us. So the anime so far has been really nice because, for instance, the black armament is supposed to be like the base, and then Luffy has red armament, which is supposed to be a little stronger, and then you have a visual representation.
has a blue one.
Exactly.
That's more spikety.
Yep. And then when it comes to Future Sight, so there was the one type of observation that we had the most marksmen use. Where it was a weird color, but then Future Sight was red.
Right.
So it's like the anime has done a great job of showing a visual representation through color of what level of Haki they're using. Yeah. And once we get to the anime fight with Kaido, I'm wondering if it's going to be like a lightning-y
like almost
coating.
Golden...
I don't know, man.
They'll have to do something with it.
It's just tough. It's tough because so far Oda's done a good job of showing it being visual for observation. You're covering your body in like a physical thing for armament.
Right.
And now all of a sudden Conquerors was willpower, but now it's also a physical thing. Yeah. So I'm hoping that's explained further.
Maybe, when Whitebeard is punching Ake, and maybe this is a little bit different because, he's doing it with his Devil Fruit as well. There's nothing black on his hand. There's no armament that we're used to there. So maybe they're all just using a level of. But that
was pre-time skip where they started showing it. So I think that was just pre-time skip before Oda knew to cover it in black.
I feel like there has to be, and then this is my theory, that there has to be a level of armament where you don't want the person that you're punching to know you're hitting them with armament, so maybe you're going to punch a Logia. So there's a way that you can cover yourself in armament, but you don't see it.
So...
Because that makes sense to be able to hide the attack you're doing.
From my perspective, for the difference between Hashoku and Gosushoku, Armament and Conquerors... So armament, it seems, and this is just from what I've seen with it. Obviously, I can't put names to anything. I can't say for certain. So Bosushoku is purely physical in that it acts as your body with armor on. As in, you can still be dented. If it's not strong enough, you're still going to get hurt. You're right. While with Conquerors, it becomes basically a barrier. Or because it becomes a force that you can, almost a force field that you can turn into a stream of energy or something like that. But you can attack from the inside, and you can make it so that you're not hurt at all. It's like I guess the best way I can explain it to myself is that with armament, you're still taking the hit, but with Conquerors, as long as they don't have equal Conquerors or better Conquerors, you're not getting hit.
You can't hit it all.
You're not getting hit.
Right.
You're hitting, like it's like you're hitting you're hitting a shield. You're hitting a wall essentially.
Yeah. I punch someone with armament, right? And they have armament, let's say, and that armament's equal to steel. I hit you with steel. You're gonna feel that I hit you.
Well, prime example,
But steel
Katakuri and
won't-
Luffy.
Right.
They were both using armament, but Luffy was still getting hurt by Katakuri's
Yeah, because his
punch.
was stronger. He had a better armor.
But I think
Better attack.
I think Conquerors, once you get to the level of being able to like control its flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's more of an outward weapon rather than just a piece of armor.
Yeah.
And that you can hit someone. That's why they don't touch. This is what I'm saying.
Right.
Is because
You're interacting with their armor, whereas
Yeah.
before you would interact with nothing and you wouldn't hurt them.
So I think it's just kind of like I think it's hard to say really.
Can you use Conquerors to attack, or is it purely defense?
Both, I'd say.
So this is where I want it to be explained.
We're in
better.
theory
Yeah.
territory here. I feel like if you cannot, because the other person has Conquerors or a type of it, physically, knock them out with your presence, the next thing is you apply that to a physical way where you can conquer them, like physically. That's how I could see it as an attack.
I guess the beginning of my theory is that it's almost like you're controlling the flow of your will type thing, and you're almost visualizing it in a way that attacks the way you want it to attack.
Right.
I'm not the best at wording things, but it's not like Armament where it's got that one thing.
Yeah.
I think Conquerors is a bit more of like a sheet that you can shape around yourself type thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my only thing is I don't want it to be a sheet. I would rather Conquerors be like something that can enhance your armament or your observation.
Like you prefer to be a transfusion into
Yeah,
already
like
existing
I'd
armor.
rather it be. I think it'd be easier to explain, and easier for the audience to understand it if Oda were to say, Conquerors not like the advanced form of Conquerors is not that you get a sheet, because that's already what armament does. But instead, you can coat your Conquerors with your armament to enhance
my
it.
comparison there was that Armament isn't a sheet. Armament is armor. It doesn't move. It's not something you can control. It's something you make appear in your body, and that's it.
But it is, because remember, you can do the force field shield with it.
Yeah, but at the same time, the way I'm saying is like there's more independence and more control to Conquerors.
Is that force field shield confirmed armament, or is that just that those three admirals are super powerful?
I mean, you saw it with the admirals, and you saw it with other characters too.
I saw the Sentomaru hitting Luffy with
I'm
it.
pretty
right?
sure.
So do you think that So here's the question: do you think Kizaru has Conquerors? If not, then
Again,
it's
I
armament.
don't think any of them have.
Then it's armament.
Conquerors.
I'm pretty sure it's Armament.
Because if you're saying that it's Conquerors,
Well, I'm not-
then you're saying they have Conquerors.
I'm not. Well, I don't think. Well, then you have to ask the question: did Whitebeard? Well,
Whitebeard
can
definitely
you
had...
throw Conquerors with the Guru Guru no Mi? Right? Because that's what they
Yes.
stopped. Right?
Because remember, you can have...
So he threw a Conquerors.
Oh no! I think
That's
he
what I
threw.
mean.
I think he threw armament.
Okay.
Right now the only thing that can be thrown is Haki armament, because that's what the Amazon Lily people did with their arrows.
Right, but if that's armament, and we're saying we can transfuse Conquerors in it, right? Wouldn't
Yeah.
it be so?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think Oda knows yet,
right.
or he hasn't told us yet.
It's hard to know.
And
We're not at the
getting
point.
there.
We're not at the point where we can confirm or deny.
I think now that the power has been
shown.
We're gonna get some
We're on the
explanation
way
from Kaido.
towards like
Yeah, it's just like with Kaido. It's just like with Luffy fighting Katakuri.
Yeah.
We were introduced to the future sight,
Right.
and then we got to explain it a lot more later on.
Yeah.
And that's really what these first two Yonko are about for Luffy. Is it's him getting to that level of true Haki mastery, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think that final level will be a mixture of like teaching Shanks.
Before the actual like coding Conquerors, however it's done, onto armament, Bert, do you feel like Conquerors bubble clashes are just cool, or do they actually serve a purpose? When Luffy and Katakuri both shoot out Conquerors at each other, and those like Conqueror like Haki waves hit, it looks great, but does that do anything? Is there any endgame to that?
Oh, What you mean?
Like the visual effect of when
representation?
two conquerors hit
Well, I
each
think
other.
that's you. I don't know how people see it. I mean, obviously people can either people see it or they feel it.
I think people feel it, but I think it's just visual.
But
for us as
here's
the
but
audience.
here's the
It's
thing
just a
too.
visual flair.
But it's also.
But like, if
here's-
Luffy's was
here's the
bigger,
thing.
could he?
Its other name is the color of the king, though.
Right.
So there is potentially a visual representation there that people can actually see.
Well, it was all color.
yeah, it's color of
observation.
Why
color
not? No,
of-
but like I'm
the
saying,
color
like
of the concrete.
if they're called by the color, there's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah, I think you can visually see it.
So there
I
might
think,
be if it's strong enough, or if you're strong enough.
I think that I think you can see it, but I think when the anime does it, where it's like fills the whole screen,
Yeah.
I think that's more.
Oh no!
It's
No.
a
That's,
visual
I think
flair.
I think that's
Yeah,
also
it's
meant-
anime. It's meant to
well,
look
well,
cool.
and also I think it's meant to show like the range of their Haki as well.
Yeah, but I think that is purely
Yeah.
for audience.
What I'm
By all means, if there was a purpose to it, maybe it's just that maybe Luffy thinks he can finish the fight with just his conquerors or whoever these two people are. Maybe they think they can finish the fight by exerting their will over the other person more in like an almost mine is bigger than yours Kamehameha, like what
Right.
you're thinking of
Yeah.
here.
So if Katakuri's was way bigger than Luffy's, it would roll over him and knock Luffy
Maybe
out, you think?
in like if
Because if you don't have it, you're done skis. If you don't have at least I feel like one and the other, one's more offensive if it's bigger, the other's more defensive. And the thing is, if it's strong enough, it will hold out, it will break, and then they actually have to fight.
It might be as simple as the size of it represents the size of their will.
Right.
My last, I guess, point to hockey in general.
It's rude to point.
Yeah, right. So I think we covered the three. I think we did a great job covering the three.
All three, yeah.
My only thing about One Piece right now that still irks me is Luffy being able to produce flames because he loved his brother. Where he does the Red Hawk punch.
Red Hawk.
I think.
How do you guys feel about that?
Once again,
I mean Sanji can spin around a lot.
But he has a reason for that. Like, he spins around a lot to produce the flames, and then he uses some type of probably
I think
inherent
I think
hockey.
it's,
and that's a genetic thing too.
Or it could
isn't
be
it?
or it could actually be his like genetic.
That's the
fucking
lineage
stuff.
factor. They all had like
honestly
elemental.
Honestly, my thought on it. I mean, okay, so
Let's be clear. It does burn.
Yeah,
When he
it's
punches
confirmed.
Hody,
Yeah,
Joe,
it's confirmed
he's
to
like-
actually burn people. It's confirmed to actually be
it's
fire.
actually
It's not
fire.
just visual.
no. What I'm
Here-
saying is
So go ahead and say what you said
Yeah.
because I also had something.
Lot
I
to
just
address
thought of.
there.
I think there's two ways to look at it. One, it could represent the spirit of Ace, which is very anime reason.
Sure.
Two, don't you me Ryan go no.
Did you tut?
just tut me? Don't
Just
you
a
tut
pretty,
me, boy?
pretty lame writing choice.
It's anime. Anyways, or, which I think is something that literally could be a thing, and I think it's the same thing for Sanji, is just the friction of the speed. Because here's the thing, it's not something he does normally. He does it in gear second, which is super
speed
fast.
one. Yep.
He
And
does it in gear second, and he coats his hand in armament. So,
Exactly.
Because obviously rubber normally burns.
Yeah.
It melts.
Yeah.
If it catches on fire.
so I honestly do believe it's a matter of the speed and friction that he's.
Because
that's
also,
perfect.
like, he pushes it back so far. It is so, like, it's farther in than, like, most of his, like, bazookas, his pistols.
Yeah.
It is just, like, it is coming in like a fucking goddamn
Comet.
rocket. A
Yeah.
comet coming into
Yeah.
Earth's
So I
atmosphere,
honestly
burning
do
up.
believe it is a matter of friction and speed.
I love that. So I love that. That is what I want. I want it to be explained through friction, not I love my brother and so I'm able to produce flames.
Well, here's the thing.
I think it's an homage to his
like
brother.
absolutely,
Yeah,
no,
it's an
exactly,
homage.
perfect. It's
Yeah.
an homage
And
to
here's-
it, but it's not.
Yeah.
I love.
Ace.
Let's say it's like someone loved Kizaru or the ice guy, and so I could produce
Kizaru.
ice.
Right.
It's like
No, I think here's the thing, right? Like usually when they see that, Ace's representation is seen through the eyes of others.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Luffy saying this is. I mean, he said like Ace's spirit's with you, but also Luffy's dumb. You know, he's,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He, obviously, he's
Luffy's
my
dumb.
my fire
Luffy is dumb.
because like that's literally what he thought
He's-
in the skip. He's like he sees this like Ace's spirit, he's within me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but he's also not very smart.
Yeah, so it's probably friction being.
Yeah, so
used.
I'm thinking because it's one of those things where a lot of times you can just kind of you can piece it together because
Yeah.
they're not going to tell you everything because
Because that's just one of those things where it's like I like hard magic systems where it's explained and it's specific. Because I like to make things into like campaigns, D&D campaigns and stuff.
Sure.
But I can't you can't make it into a campaign if it's like, oh, well, I love this guy, so now I can throw plants at people. It's like, well, you know, I wanted to have somewhat of an explanation.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
You made an entire forest grow. What happened? Love happened.
I loved him so
My love of
much.
these plants. No, I mean, early on when Brook was using his ice attacks, right? I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I thought of the idea of like, you know, elemental Haki being like a type of Haki, but you know, it doesn't make much sense.
Also, he has the chill of death, so there.
Exactly. So
No,
I think
I know.
his fruit is the reason why he can do that, and it's only with one attack.
And
so
that's
it's like, whatever.
that's what I said. Like, you know, ultimately, I didn't feel like elemental Haki was being introduced. There was no elements in like Haki being combined. There was, and I think this has always been a thing with One Piece too, is that you have like devil fruits, you have Haki, and then you just have like abilities that some characters have that are like attacks. Like, why does Zoro get to like spin his swords around and create a giant twister? You know, like there's just like abilities that aren't devil fruit or Haki related that are just
Force of damnation.
yeah, it's very true. But like, you know, and so Brook using ice, Sanji using fire, Nami being able to, you know, do the stuff she does with lightning and clouds, right? Those are just abilities that, you know, characters that don't have innate powers from the two power systems, they have to fight somehow.
Yeah,
right?
but they have a good job of explaining how it works.
Yeah.
Nami uses the weather
Right.
tempo thing.
Yeah.
Usopp
She combines like
it's
she combines different
invention,
temperatures.
plan.
Yeah,
Yes, right.
Usopp has to find. He chose seeds specifically in that island he was
Right.
in to use. Like that's where I love it. I love how it's explained. I love how
you have
they
to think
details.
he has a garden. You have to think that Usopp
course
has a
he's gonna-
garden.
Oh, he better have a garden.
in the sun because I mean,
He's gonna run out. And he's
I
like,
will
I'm
absolutely
powerless.
gonna run
Literally,
out.
I want him in his room
He's
just to be
Legolas.
this garden of like man-eating plants.
You always wonder what Usopp does on the ship. It's just
Yeah, he's not the engineer anymore.
He tends the garden.
Yeah,
And
he
then,
doesn't need to be.
and then you know, and then Frankie, of course, he has his laser beam, right, that he got from Kizaru's
And
like
his nipple
Vegapunk's
lights. Yeah, don't forget his
experiments.
nipple lights.
Nipple lights very important,
Yep.
right? His is innovation and inventions, right, that make him powerful. So no, all the Straw Hats, you know, and then Jinbei obviously fisherman karate again.
Yep.
An innate power that's not like one of
It
the
comes
two power
from his
systems.
species. It's not.
Yeah, that's a
Right,
species thing. Well,
Well, it's
it is a species thing, but that human learned it.
Move the point.
It's a technique slash ability that can. Be
I know that. I mean, that was the fighting styles, my man.
Yeah.
But like you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Koala-chan.
You simp.
I love Koala. She's kind of fun. She's really sad as a kid.
I'm a simp for Foxy hashtag.
I know it. We all know it. But yeah, I feel like that was. Is there anything else we want to talk about on the topic of Haki?
We'll see if Im has some magical one.
I mean, you gotta. there's gotta be.
We'll see.
I feel like Im's gonna be some sort of Orochi type, where like he doesn't fight, but he is the head of all this.
I could see him being Shanks' daddy.
You don't see the. You don't.
Daddy.
You,
Confirmed it right now. Im is Shanks' daddy.
You
on
don't
Nami.
see the Gorosei, fighting, do you? I don't think so.
I can see them fighting. One of them
Maybe.
has a sword, big old sword.
I think they're the bodyguards for Im, and that's why they have so much power.
Mm.
I can see them fighting.
And they're really old.
We'd have to
because
go
they've
back
been
to the
bodyguards
other red
forever.
line to deal with it.
I think
wouldn't
saying saying that you can't see them fight is like saying you couldn't see Gonfall fight, in my opinion.
The Gorosei are definitely going to fight.
They're gonna fight. I'm certain of it.
They have some of the super great weapons. They're going to fight.
super great weapons.
Or the
And they're
really
just-
fancy steel
And
weapons.
also,
I know what you meant.
I don't think they're gonna be top of the world if they can't fight.
Are we? Okay, so okay.
I think the only ones we can say that about are the Tenryubito.
Do they
because
have
they're-
conquerors? That makes sense.
I don't know.
Well,
Some of them.
and
do,
here's the
because
thing,
obviously
right?
Dofi.
Well, we're not saying it's a ninja thing, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm
Or
just-
are we?
I'm just saying some of them
That some can have it
have
because
the
Dofi
potential
has it.
for
I
it,
definitely
because
feel like
Dofi, being a former celestial dragon, did have it.
I mean, look, Im's a final boss. So is Blackbeard. So I feel like if they don't have Haki at the end of the series,
Let's just hope they're not moon aliens. Then we're set.
well, the moon aliens that come are going to be Enaru's.
That's gonna be the
cult.
that's gonna be the sequel.
Moon aliens that can be defeated in literally one volume of One Piece.
Space pirates. Okay.
Because that's the thing.
That's where Naruto fans got pissed.
Kaguya got beat in one book.
Yeah.
Well, and also here's what happens. Like once our favorite electric villain comes back down from the moon with his new alien army,
It's going to be great.
Saitama's gonna jump over
No!
to another world
No!
and one punch him, and then that'll
Well,
be it.
I was going to say Saitama can just one punch the red line. And the whole
Saitama's
thing from-
punch
Fair
definitely
enough.
has
We can
conquerors
destroy the planet,
infused.
I'm certain.
Yeah.
That guy has infused conquerors in his fist.
He
Absolutely.
created conquerors.
He created conquerors.
He is the conqueror.
His training regimen. That's how you get confidence.
So what about Sakura? Does Sakura have?
No, Sakura doesn't.
I'm pretty sure she does.
Oh, definitely.
Anyway,
Sakura could beat
I think
everyone.
I think we should leave off with that note.
All right, so that is Haki. That is both power systems Dunskies. We'll see when we have a next break. Hopefully not soon, Oda. Let's grab them like a few weeks when we have.
No offense, viewers. We do enjoy our discussions, but we love some chapters.
Oh yeah,
Especially Foxy and
captains. No. All right, with that, we will see you guys next week.
We're off, boys.
No. All right, listeners, that concludes this episode of the Yonko Podcast. How about that Haki? Am I right? If you enjoy this series, let us know in the comments and drop a like on the video. We'll see you next week for our review of Chapter 1012. That's 1012, boys. All right, we're off.